Hi, I'm Maddie,
And I'm Abigail, and this is
two writers.
Many Wrongs. Two writers, many ways to succeed. Maddie and I have been reflecting on our writing journeys, and after having the privilege to interview so many established authors, we've really been asking ourselves, what does our definition of success look like in the world of writing, in the world of publishing? What would have to happen for us to feel like we were successful in our writing goals? So that's what we're talking about today. And really, this was inspired specifically because we've finally got to release our TJ Klune episode, which we've been sitting on for like 2 months waiting to release that.
Yeah, I think this will be an interesting one because it's something that I have told people consistently whenever I've done like writing groups or whatever is you need to define what success looks like to you because it's going to look different and like
Hmm.
really sit down and think what it is that you want to achieve
Hmm.
because that really puts things into perspective. And I think too, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about how your idea of success maybe has changed
Yeah.
over the years because I think a lot of my ideas of what I thought I wanted to do and what I wanted to be have
Hmm.
changed over this past year. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. The ideas have changed. I also think it's an interesting topic of conversation to talk about the different levels of success. Because, I think to some degree, not everybody, most writers, their goal is, oh, well, I want, packed book signings and a number one bestseller
a movie
and
deal.
right, a movie deal and like all the rest of that. And it's that very like commercial idea of success, I think is for most people like the top tier. But I think that there are obviously like those smaller markers along the way that can make us feel successful. And I guess my question to myself would be, where's that tipping point? Where is the level of I finally feel successful, and anything on top of that is just icing. And I started thinking about that when TJ talked about House in the Cerulean Sea, or really Somewhere Beyond the Sea, released at the number one bestseller. And he's like, that's great. I checked that off my list. And now I don't have to worry about doing it again. And the way that he was able to reframe that instead of I have to keep chasing that high, I was so insightful to me.
That was exactly the same moment I was thinking of too, because I'm like, that would be really nice just to be in a place where I don't care about the success and I just know
Hmm.
that I can write the stories I want to write and get a
Hmm.
paycheck.
Right, exactly. So let's dive into that. What would your like bare minimum of success look like for you?
To make any kind of money
Hmm.
from one of my stories or books or whatever. It doesn't even have to be a livable wage, just a wage of some kind. You know, like when TJ was talking about how he's like, I got $250 for my first book. And I'm like, that sounds great. That would
Right?
be like to me, like
Yeah.
I think any kind of pay like
Hmm.
publication to or
Hmm.
payment would be like my first bar of success.
Yeah. I very much agree with that being the first bar of success, because that's the point where you're allowed to call yourself an author instead of a writer, is that the denotation? Is that how you pronounce that word? Denotion? I was like, that doesn't sound right. We're writers, we do words. We're real good with the vocab.
We
Um,
write, we write. We're not
that's true.
speakers.
That's so accurate. The number of words that I can spell, but I cannot pronounce. But I think that's the thing that kind of denotes the difference between a writer, oh, I do this as a hobby, I do this for fun, versus the author, I'm a professional, I get paid to do this for our external friends and family.
Yes.
Like, even though for us, what we do, we take very, very seriously, others do not take us as seriously until we have that paycheck.
I think that is a huge part of it. Is it's like that's something I've been asking myself. Like, what is it that
Hmm.
I want versus what, because I'm a people pleaser. So it's
Hmm.
like, oh, I have to do this because that is everybody's expectation. Because there's always this, I need a publication so that people can see that I am actively passionate and working on
Hmm.
this.
hmm
That's why I need a publication, not because I need a publication, but because nobody's gonna see that I really am working and working really hard unless
Right.
I have a publication.
Well, and so it's funny. So when we originally asked ourselves this question months ago when we started this podcast, we put together a spreadsheet of different topics and ideas, and then we both jotted out some answers that we kind of reflect on. And looking at my answer right now, my answer to what does success look like is having my family be able to buy my book in a bookstore. So it really is that external validation of I don't want to just finish writing a book. I don't want to just publish a book. I want my mom to be able to walk into a Barnes and Noble and pick my book up off the shelf. It doesn't have to be on the bestseller shelf. It doesn't have to be, people to watch, whatever. It just to buy it from someplace that is not Amazon,
Yeah.
that is an actual in-store establishment. And that is so many steps to accomplish before
Yeah.
you get there that I'm really thinking about it. And I'm like, do I need all of those steps? Like, yes, I think that would be my like I could call myself a writer. I could call myself an author when people ask, "Oh, what do you do?" I feel like I could say that.
Yeah.
But I think real at this moment in time for me, success would be to get an agent. Like that would be my next tier. Because I've been lucky enough to have a short story published, to get, like $100 for it, which was incredible and amazing. And like I took Michael and I out to a nice dinner because,
Spent it all
I got
immediately.
paid. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Spent it immediately. But that celebration and stuff. So I think the next rung on the ladder for me is to get an agent.
Hmm.
And I think that the reason why that bar is still so high is because you and I have done so much work. We already have, complete edited short stories, or a manuscript that we feel proud of, or poems that you feel proud of, or things like that. And I
Hmm.
feel like those are like the baby rungs at the very beginning, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, totally. I think I remember when I first took on this journey,
hmm
I went to a Barnes and Noble. I went to the science fiction section and I did the alphabet and was like, when I get published, this is right
hmm
where my book would sit, right here. Took a
Aw.
picture, hoping that
Aw.
one day I might be actually be able to retake that picture, but with
hmm
my book there.
Yeah.
Um, but I think like the barrier first, the idea of what it means to be successful has kind of gotten smaller as I've been writing more and
hmm
like we talked about with resolutions, having this idea of I want to write more. Even
hmm
that is, I think, a win, is a mark of success because it's like I'm writing more, I'm creating more consistently, and I'm writing work that I'm proud of. So even that would be
Yeah.
a success for me because I've just been so caught up in one project. But now I can sit at my desk and not be stressed out and write.
hmm
And that is a huge win for me.
hmm
And so thinking about, like you said, these smaller things too are just as important.
hmm
But I think I really would like to work on getting published. And I think before it was like I have these stories I want to get published, but
hmm
now I want to focus more on getting published rather
hmm
than this story I want published and just
Right. Yes.
continuing to move forward and work on new
hmm
projects because, uh, you know, I may not have the story that's going to be my first publication yet. It may be something I write.
Right.
So
Well, and that was TJ's big piece of advice is
build
build
your
your back
back up.
catalog.
Yep.
Right, exactly. So, I was at my writing group last night, the one that's in Orlando, and we were talking about that. And one of the girls in the group said that her goal for this year moving forward was to get 20 short stories that were just written and completed and edited and like polished. And then next year, she wanted to focus on sending those out to attempt publication. But she's like, I want to get to 20 because I feel like at that point, I will have one that could be submitted for oh, this journal's looking for something about this, or this journal's looking for something about this. And she's like, and having them ready to go, she's like, I think that will be less stressful. She's like, because at this point, I'm finding these writing contests or whatever that are like, hey, write to this thing. And she's like, and I can't write it fast enough or well enough to
Hmm.
get it done in time. And so it's so funny that like that idea of building your back catalog keeps coming up. And like you and I have talked about before, I don't know that my first book that I wrote is going to be the first book that I get published. I really think it might be my second book instead. So I've been killing myself trying to get those edits done so I can start querying that book instead, because I think it'll be more successful, more commercially successful.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that building the back catalog is something that I really want to focus on too, because there's an author that I like, Charlie Jane Anders, and she was talking about how she's written hundreds and hundreds of stories. She just keeps
Wow.
writing them and keeps churning them out. And she's like,
Hmm.
not all of them get published, but the fact that just having that forward motion and
Hmm.
continuing to move forward, that way you're not, when I have two short stories I'm really proud of and I really want them to get published, it hurts when they
Yeah.
don't get published because I got nothing else to send them.
Right.
And
Hmm.
so I think building the back catalog would be
Hmm.
good for like, it's like, oh, they didn't like that story. How about this one? How about this one?
Right.
Like a
Because
little bit
that's
less attachment.
well, and that's what happens when you get those yes or the no and rejections is when they say, I don't think that this is right for us, but feel free to send us something else. It's like, well, you want to have something to send right there, right away. Because that's the highest chance for success is I've caught your eye, so let me send you something else. And I think that there's something special in that because when you think back to, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like we're pretty similar, where you were in seventh grade the idea of finishing a story was a huge accomplishment.
Hmm.
And, just to finish a short story that I felt was complete, that I didn't feel like I had to go keep going back and editing and adding and whatever else was incredible to me. And then when I got to grad school, it was the idea of, okay, well, to finish a manuscript,
Hmm.
even if I know it sucks, even if I know it's going to be, the first of 27 drafts, just to finish something in that, we can talk about the idea that the goalposts keep changing, but I think instead that old like corporate metaphor of the ladder of success is really accurate because it's not that the goalpost keeps changing, it's that we're just moving up to the next rung of what we think success looks like.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting analogy. I don't know if I like ladder though,
I know.
because it seems like you're leaving something behind,
Right. And
or
I'm
that you're
trying to,
above somebody else, and I don't think of it that
yes,
way. I
agreed.
think
And
of
I,
it more like you're moving forward. So
because,
you've met this goalpost, so now there's a new goalpost and then a
mm-hmm,
new one. Like it's not so much goalpost, more like checkpoints, like in a video game.
yes. Oh my God, I love that because that's exactly what I was trying to think of. Because I was like, I don't really love ladder because one, it sounds very corporate America, the ladder of success. And like you said, it is you have to climb faster than the person next to you, and it's very that competitive thing. And I was like, well, maybe like bridges, like you're crossing a bridge, but then like you said, you're leaving something behind. And I think the video game metaphor is perfect because it's not that you're leaving it behind. You can always go back and play that level, and you can always go back and get the next achievement, but that level is complete in so much as you needed to do it to move on to the next level. It might not be perfect.
This is a good example because I'm
Yeah.
an achievement hunter and a
Me too.
completionist. So like, uh, but sometimes I'm like,
Hmm.
I want to keep the story flowing, so I'm just going
Hmm.
to do the bare minimum so I can get to the next story, and then I can go back and I can get
Hmm.
all the little achievements that I wanted to get. But it's
Yep.
like you don't need to have everything done to move to the next level. You
Hmm.
just need to have X, Y, and Z completed, and then you can go back and replay the mission and get like gold achievement on it or something.
Well, and even because we love our extended metaphors here, I'm even thinking about like the video games that I play. I love the Lego games. And so I have Lego Harry Potter and Lego Star Wars and Lego Indiana Jones and whatever else. And with Lego Harry Potter, you have to replay each level multiple times because you don't have certain spells. So it forces you to just move through the entire game, build up your character, unlock all of those spells, and then go back and play it again so that you can complete it. And I love that idea of, with writing, it very much is that artistic craft in that it forces you to go back to square one every single time. You finish a short story, that's awesome. Now you have to start another one. You're back at square one. Now you have to do the whole process over again.
Yeah, I mean, so right now I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2.
Hmm.
And so like there's story progression,
Hmm.
but there's also like a lot of like bonus stuff you can do. So like you can ride horses and like
Hmm.
you trade horses, fight horses, and we can rob banks and stuff. But like that's like extra stuff on top of what you're doing. You can keep playing the game and just go through the story without doing any
Hmm.
of the little side missions. Or you
Hmm.
could do a bunch of side missions,
Hmm.
which of course make it easier for you to play the main game because then you become more practice or you have more money, et cetera, et cetera. But it's kind of like that, like, because it's like you could
Hmm.
go from like this novel to this novel to this novel.
Hmm.
But like every once in a while, it's like, oh, maybe I'll do a short story.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do this. But it's
Hmm.
also like you can play it however you like. Maybe you never do
Hmm.
that. Maybe you just continue down a certain project path.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that it's interesting because there is people play video games differently. So like you and I were talking about, we're both completionists. So to me, being successful in a video game is finishing all of the little side quests. So like I was playing Pokemon Arceus on the Switch
Love
and
that game.
I finished the main storyline, but I have not caught all the Pokemon. And I'm like, that's the whole point of Pokemon is to catch
Agreed.
them all. So to me, that game is incomplete. And I was successful in that I finished it, but there's still work to be done. And I think that the same thing goes for writing is that, there is a moment of success when you finish a story or finish a manuscript. And then there's another moment of success when you feel comfortable to send it out places. And then there's a moment of success when it gets accepted someplace. Um, or when you get an agent, or when you get a book deal, or when you finally get published, or, so on and so forth. Like, I love that idea of checkpoints of success instead of you are or are not successful. It's not non-binary.
No, but like, I also
Or
love that
it's
because we're
not
talking about
binary.
knew what you meant. Anyway,
Thank you.
I love that because I also like the idea of achievements because in games you
Hmm.
get achievements for
Hmm.
different things and some of them aren't always good. Sometimes
Yes.
you get an achievement because you did something really stupid.
Hmm.
They're like, "Wow, congratulations. This is I can't believe you did this. You're dumb." But kind of like taking that moment of
Hmm.
appreciating even like, hey, like I was playing Mario Party and I had 6 stars and I lost them all in one turn. And
No.
no, that didn't actually happen. But I'm saying
Oh God, that would have been devastating.
imagine getting like an achievement
Sorry.
that's like imagine an achievement like that. Like, wow, you lost 6 turns
Oh
and getting
yeah.
an achievement for that. And because I think too it's important to acknowledge like
Hmm.
that was a pretty spectacular failure. But
Yes.
having little random weird moments
Hmm.
highlighted in video games with achievements is so
Hmm.
fun. I love like, oh, I'm
Hmm.
gonna do this mission really badly because it says if I take 10 minutes to
Yes.
save this guy, then I get an achievement. But I
Hmm.
think too, like maybe we have these moments of achievement, even things that are kind of silly, like, wow, this
Hmm.
magazine rejected me 10 times. I get
Yeah.
like a mega ice cream because that's 10 times that's
Hmm.
a lot.
But I think that there's also fun stuff of like those silly achievements that don't actually matter. So there's some game, and you'll know what it is. I don't know what it is, but that Michael was playing where you can pet a dog. And like once you figure out how to do that, you get an achievement. And like if there's a dog in the game, you can go up and pet it. And like it's stupid. It doesn't influence anything. It's just exciting
I
because you can
think
pet a dog.
I think there's a website where
Hmm.
like it asks if you can pet the dog.
Yeah. So, like, it's so silly, but it makes us feel excited and it makes us feel good.
Yeah.
And I
So
think that
Baldur's Gate 2,
hmm
you can have a dog and an owl bear cub. And there's a scene where if you have them both, you can calm them down and then you're petting them both at the same time. And then you get an achievement called You Have Two Hands for a Reason.
Oh my God, that's so cute. And I'm just thinking about when it comes to writing, there are those silly achievements. I said to my writing group yesterday, no writing is wasted writing, which is what you and I talk about all the time, which is something that, I mean, I really got from you, because I always feel like I have to be moving forward in some direction. It's like, you're allowed to just pet the dog. You're allowed to just write for fun.
Yeah, and I think too, because at the end of the day, I know we haven't really talked about this, something we've
Hmm.
kind of alluded to is whether writing is a craft or an art.
Yeah.
I think if you want to be on that artistic, that more emotional
Hmm.
side, you
Hmm.
need to feed the
Yeah.
silly, the little moments in order
Hmm.
for the to have that magic in your writing and feel excited to write. And I think if you let yourself play, it continues to be exciting and challenge
Yeah.
yourself to new heights.
No, exactly. I completely agree with that. So, having discussed any of this, do you feel like your definition of success has changed since we started talking about this? I know that that's a really brief window of time, and you said it's changed over the past year, but even just having this conversation, I'm rethinking my definition of success for my writing in particular.
I don't know that I've necessarily changed my opinion in the course of this episode, but it is kind of because it's something that I'm currently working on defining
Hmm.
because I put so much pressure on have to produce X number of pages and
Hmm.
I have to be published so I can prove to people that I'm
Right.
serious about writing. And those are things that I'm trying to get rid of.
Hmm.
But they still linger, they're still there. But I think that success is something that we need to learn how to, there's smaller successes and there's big successes, and I think
Hmm.
it's we need to learn how to appreciate each moment
Yeah,
of
no,
success.
absolutely. To again celebrate that checkpoint, to get to the flagpole, raise the flag, and get our stars, I think is an important thing to be able to do. And I think while my ultimate goal will remain the same of to have somebody walk into a bookstore and be able to buy my book, that it's on the shelf there. They don't have to special order it. They don't have it's on the shelf. I think that would be my tipping point of success. Of anything after that is just icing. Um, I do feel more capable to celebrate those smaller successes along the way.
Yeah, I think too, kind of having that idea of there in a video game, there's celebrations every time you complete a level.
Hmm.
And then And then there's like, I'm thinking of like a Mario game. So like there's like 10 levels and then you complete this island and then you get to
Hmm.
go to the next island. And then
Exactly.
there's a boss fight. But each one of those things, like
Hmm.
I made the success of finishing this level.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Hmm.
And then when you do the island, that's a bigger success, but that's
Hmm.
that's more exciting than
Right.
doing a level. But each
Hmm.
level, like taking that moment to celebrate,
Hmm.
like this was a big thing you did. You
Yeah.
completed. Congratulations.
Hmm.
I think taking time to f- not like have like your top tier success. This is what I
Yeah.
want to happen,
Hmm.
but also don't forget to celebrate those little moments because we were talking about in resolutions episode about you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think
Hmm.
if your idea of success is to be published, like it was always for me, I
Right.
think you're going to continue to feel like a failure
Hmm.
because you're not acknowledging that, hey, I wrote a short story.
Right.
That's a win. Hey, I wrote another short story. That's a win. You need
Exactly.
to acknowledge those moments too in order
Hmm.
to have the willpower and energy to keep moving forward. Because you're just going to be
Yes.
devastated if you're like, I'm such a failure.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we have these little like phrases and whatever, and like we almost like pretend to understand of, oh, well, every book was once a first draft and, nothing comes easily. We all have to work, but that's so much easier said than done. It's so much harder when you're looking at this book that you've just finished reading that is incredible, thinking to yourself, how the fuck do I get here?
Hmm.
And so I think really, really breaking it down. And you mentioned the resolutions episode. I'm now thinking about your matrix thing that you made of like monthly goals, quarterly goals, yearly goals. Like it's the same concept of, finish a draft, edit a draft, submit a draft, get accepted, public. Like there are so many stages where you can celebrate along the way.
Yeah, I think looking for reasons to celebrate is good too because it that's why video games are so good is you get that
Hmm.
instant feedback. I
Hmm.
finished a level,
Yep.
I get like a star and it's
Hmm.
celebrated.
Yeah.
Whereas I finish a short story and I'm thinking it's not published, my novel's not done, I don't have an
Hmm.
agent, but it just kind of minimizes what I've accomplished.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking because
Yeah.
it's not taking the time to be like, wow, this is really good. Take a moment to
Right.
acknowledge that. That's hard because,
Hmm.
like you said, when you were 14, it's like the idea, 13 or
Hmm.
14, to be
Yeah.
like, how do I finish a story? And it's like you and I both
Yeah.
written novels. We finished novels, and that is
Right.
huge, despite the fact that we're not published yet,
Yep.
or
Yeah.
as novelists, and we don't have an agent. We still
Hmm.
finished a novel, which is more than
Right.
a lot of people have done.
Exactly. And like I hold on to that sometimes like a life jacket of
Oh yeah.
I have finished this thing, and I feel good about it. And like I am at the point where, because previously, if my family asked to read something of mine, I was like, nope, it's not done. It's not ready yet. You can't see it. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I feel pretty good about this. If you want me to send you a copy, I can certainly email you something, you know? And like I'm finally getting to that place where like I feel good about doing this. And I know that there's, many, many stages ahead, but yeah, I just like that idea of like celebrating this moment. I want to switch gears a little bit here. And we've talked about those small successes and the small goals and accomplishments and those checkpoints and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to take all of that and put it in a nice little package with a bow and then chuck it out the window and talk about instead, what would your dream project be? Like you are big and successful and you are able to do like whatever the fuck you want to do next. What would your dream project as a writer be?
Oh man, my absolute dream
Yeah.
would be TV.
Oh, that's so cool. Like to adapt one of your stories into a TV show?
Yes, like to take my
Mm-hmm.
novel universe and adapt it into a TV
Hell
series.
yeah.
That would be
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do a movie. I think like
Mm-hmm.
a TV series would have the room for the intricacies that I'd want to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Well, and I think that's the thing is that one, because you're right, sci-fi and like movies, uh, just like you said, they have such a limited space, whereas a TV show or like a limited series, you can really get into the intricacies of it. And in TV, the writer is king. Like in movies, it's the director because it's so funny. So my thing was going to be a movie or a Broadway musical would be like
Yeah, I
my
was thinking
dream
about
dream.
that. Yeah.
Now, where music would fit into my show or my book, I have no idea. But that would be like my dream to see it adapted to stage, and to be the person who wrote that. No, I don't think that I would ever have the skill set to do it. I don't have the background writing scripts. Like you've done research, you've practiced that skill.
Yeah, I
Um,
took classes in screenwriting too.
Right. Yeah, I have nothing in that. Um, but I think that would be like the ultimate dream for me. And so I always, when I have my beta readers read for me, one of the questions I ask them is, who would you cast as this character? Because that tells me if I've done a good job describing what I think they look
Mm.
like. But also, I think that it really shows like the personality of the person, of like that character. So when I wrote my first book, it's about siblings. And my dream casting, if it had been turned into a movie right then and there, would have been Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Mm.
And like to have like that idea that those actors that like I respect for their acting chops would act out my characters would be incredible to me. Like that would
Yeah.
be like the highest level holy shit success that I think I could ever get.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I think too, television is something that I would like to do, because that was my dream job
Hmm.
was to work in television. And life took a different course, but I
Yeah.
had applied for, well, I had started my application for NYU to get a master's in screenwriting because I wanted to go
Dang.
to New York and I wanted to be a comedy writer.
Uh-huh.
Um, and life took a completely different turn, but I still
Hmm.
think I still think that's something that I would love to do and be a part of
Hmm.
is television because it'd be
Hmm.
still honoring the
Hmm.
baby Maddie that that was what she wanted to do.
Well, I am obviously not pleased about some of the turns that life took, but I'm very pleased that you ended up at UT so that we could be together and, do all
Yeah,
this,
that wouldn't have happened because I wanted to go to
Yeah.
grad school immediately after.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. So, I'm glad that we at least met and moving forward, you can go to NYU because now you're my friend and I'm going to keep you forever no matter where you go.
that's
You're going to be
right.
my bestie.
But like I don't know like now like the idea of like
Hmm.
going to New York and
Hmm.
getting a degree in screenwriting and then
Yeah.
train to be like an intern or something at
Hmm.
like SNL
Yeah, of
sounds
course.
awful. Like I don't want to do
Well,
that. I'm so comfy in my little North Carolina
yeah.
house with my dogs and it's quiet and I
Hmm.
that's not that fast paced kind of. I used to crave that, but like now I'm just not right now.
It's just funny because as hilarious as I find you, it's hard to picture you as a comedy writer because I know you as a science fiction, space opera, like big brain, big ideas writer. So that's really cool to me that like at one point in time, comedy was what you wanted to go into.
Well, I like my dream was to like write for the Colbert Report and
Oh,
Daily Show.
okay. Yeah, that fits perfectly with my idea of you because you've seen John Oliver how many times now?
Like 4 or 5.
That's
He's my
wild.
favorite. I
I
could never
know.
work for him though.
Yeah.
Probably not. I would not be able to work.
No, no, you would not be
Probably
able to
just be
function.
starstruck the entire time.
But I'm thinking about those ideas of success changed, you know? Um, and it's the same thing that, I've always thought is I always wanted to be a writer. And at one point, I wanted to be a journalist and work for National Geographic and travel and do like photojournalism. And at one point, like I wanted to do nonfiction and like do short essays like David Sedaris and like that kind of thing. And then at one point, I wanted to be a poet. And like the idea of what type of writing I wanted to do, what type of success has changed a lot over the years. And it's kind of comforting to know it's going to continue to change and shift.
Yeah, I mean, like I still try to pay homage to the younger versions of myself.
Hmm.
Like I do, there's a comedian who's like one of the main characters in my novel, and that's kind of
How fun.
I get to be a comedy writer, at least
Hmm.
in this fictitious world. But I think I don't think that's something I would really want. I mean, like
Hmm.
I like the idea of to like to be a part of the
Yeah.
television, but not
Hmm.
like it be my life. So like I
Yeah.
like having like a consulting role for somebody
Hmm.
adapting my book would be really cool to be a
Yeah.
part of that and like
Hmm.
not necessarily a part of like the writing team, but maybe
Hmm.
like collaborate and ask
Yeah.
questions. That would be really cool, but I still want to go and be able to sleep until 9 and not be like in the studio for like 12 hours a day. Like
Yeah.
I don't want that life.
I am too controlling, I think, that I would want to be the person to adapt it because there's so many horror stories. John Irving, Stephen King, Michael Crichton all sold the rights and then hated the movies that were produced after that. That I feel like I'd want to have my fingies and everything, you know?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, like movies too, I think in
Yeah.
particular really do kind of, they don't take the time.
Yeah. No,
I
absolutely.
think like, I think the example that I think of is, and I know this is gonna sound like a bad example, but uh, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
George R. R. Martin, who actually was a television writer for a while,
Hmm.
had, yeah, he wrote a lot of TV. Um, he and maybe not a lot, but he did write
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
TV
Yeah.
anyway. It doesn't matter. But anyway, he was more of a consulting role. Like he came in and he would tell them, and they
Nice.
would write the scripts.
Hmm.
I think what happened though, the problem became is the books were behind the
Yeah.
TV series, and I think that's
Hmm.
where the problem really was,
Oh, yeah.
because they didn't have the source material.
Yep.
But I think like in the beginning, I think they did a really good job
Hmm.
adapting the books, and I think it was because he was involved, even if he wasn't like
Right.
controlling everything. I'm sure that he was at least advising them, and I think that would probably be a more comfortable role.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's funny to me that idea of success of it's it makes me think of Hamilton and when the song when Washington decides to step aside and talks about like I've built this thing and now I'm allowed to rest. Um and I feel like that when we talk about our dream projects, like our ultimate idea of success, I think to some degree, both of us, it is that I've done the hard work
yeah,
and now it gets to move to a new medium and have somebody else nurture it and appreciate it in some way. Like it's funny to me because when we think about successful writers, there is the idea of legacy in what lives on past us. And, yes, obviously, I would love to write a book that is eventually taught in classrooms and impacts generations to come. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's the type of writing that I do, but I think that that is such a like societal marker of success that is kind of out of bounds. But I think to some degree, both of us just mentioned that of like, I want this thing that I created to outlive me and to grow into something else.
Yeah, absolutely. But as fun and like as interesting as all of that would be, there'd be like a lot of people having commentary about my
Oh, yeah.
characters and stuff, and that also is very scary to me.
Yes.
But I think what would be really nice is like to go to one of those like a teeny tiny indie bookstore with
Mm-hmm.
my published book and sit at a
Mm-hmm.
table,
Mm-hmm.
and someone comes up and they're like, "Hey, your character, I that's me in the book."
Mm-hmm.
And I love that person and I thank you for writing them. Like that would
Yeah.
be I'd be like, that's a peck and I'm going home. Like that
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that would
Yeah.
be the best feeling in the world.
Yeah. I finished a book called Same as It Ever Was by Claire Lombardo. And it was one of those moments where I wanted to reach out to her and be like, you have put your finger on something that like I didn't know was widely felt and felt very like seen in that book. And yeah, for somebody to reach out to me about something that I wrote for them would be incredible.
I think too. I think at the end of the day, like one of the reasons it's not just like, oh, I want to be on TV and make lots of money.
Right, yeah.
It's like I want the ability to reach people. And
Yeah.
TV is something and movies something that like those are
Hmm.
way bigger
Yeah.
mediums and it means that they're reaching more people. And
Hmm.
I see stuff like Star Wars and Star Trek and see people like at conventions dressed up
Hmm.
like their favorite characters
Yeah.
and just talking about the series. And I think that feels really good to be part of something
Hmm.
so much bigger than yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because looking at our spreadsheet, like I said, my definition of success was family, buy it in the bookstore, and yours was very simply to have an audience,
Yeah.
to reach out to people, to interact with them, to make them feel seen. And I feel like in return, that helps us as authors feel seen, that the things that we're writing about are not isolated experiences either.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's validation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think too, like being a lonely little kid growing up
Hmm.
to like actually have somebody want to sit and
Hmm.
listen to what I think and what I say when I always felt like it wasn't important
Hmm.
would be very validating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, I think that, we've talked a lot about our definition of success as writers. Um, but I've also been thinking more and more about this podcast and like what our idea of success would be for this podcast. And we've joked around a lot about, oh, we have 5 listeners and they're all related to us and yada, yada, yada. Um, but like we've had a reel on Instagram get over, 1,500 likes. And that
Wow.
little feeling, and that's a tiny number in the grand scheme of like social media. But when that happens, I get that feeling of like, oh, we tapped into a vein. Other people have felt this.
Yeah.
And that's really my biggest goal with this podcast is to have other writers feel seen. And why, obviously, I would love to grow our following and have people comment on our stuff and interact with us in some way, reach out
Yeah.
to us. Um, and to be able to do all of that would be awesome. Right now, my first checkpoint for success is just the hope that this podcast is reaching a writer who maybe is feeling alone or maybe is feeling down on themselves and is trying to create their own definition of success.
Yeah. I think that'd be really nice. I think again, it just comes down to fundamentally community.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
this is a way to grow a writing community because I know I didn't have a writing community for a long time
Hmm.
and I felt very alone and felt like I'm screaming into the void. And then I felt so good to have a writing community and be like, this is how all writers feel. We always feel
Right.
like, what am I doing? Like some days
Hmm.
I just don't feel like writing. And some
Yeah.
days I'm like, am I a writer? And that's all very normal things to feel. And I felt
Hmm.
very a lot more confident and sure of myself and what I wanted to do while being around other writers. And so
Hmm.
kind of wanted to return the favor, I think, is
Yeah.
a lot of reasons I want to do this podcast was like
Hmm.
I've been there. I've seen what it's like and felt what it's like to be a writer and be rejected and to be alone, to feel like your words don't
Yep.
matter. And so and I've learned from that. And I
Mhm.
want to make sure that other people who are going through that can
Yep.
be told like, hey,
Hmm.
don't stop. Keep
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, because we've talked about before, we're never going to be able to stop the rejections. That
Mm-mm.
is a part of being a writer. We're never going to be able to stop that feeling of, is this worth it? Am I doing the right thing? Am I building towards something bigger? Because that is a natural part of being a writer. It's part of the thing that keeps us going, that fuels the fire of our creativity, is that doubt a little bit. But being able to look around and realize you're not alone in that doubt. And there are other people playing the same game along the way, I think really helps. It makes me think of back before like major internet connection kind of things. My brothers used to have LAN parties all the
Oh
time.
yeah. Hmm.
And for those younger listeners who don't know, LAN party would be you would get like six TVs and then six different Xboxes, and you would all play like Halo together, but you couldn't play online. Like there wasn't the, multi, but and so they would have LAN parties. Like everyone would bring over their own TV and their own Xbox, and they would play games together. And to me, like that's kind of what we're doing. We're having a big LAN party together. Like we're all sitting together. We're all just trying to get to the next checkpoint and like can give each other advice. And I'm notorious when Michael and I play couch co-op games for handing the control to Michael and be like, I can't do this part. Like you do it for me. And or getting that advice of watching tutorials, watching, cheats online, any of that, like that is what we're doing. We are trying to play this individual game together.
Yeah, I love that. That's really fun. LAN parties.
Yeah.
Bring back LAN parties. I mean,
Right? Let's play games in the same room again.
I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so much. I mean, like it's fun. Like, so Josh and I sometimes will play like online games,
Hmm.
and so I don't know, it feels really fun because uh we both have to sit at our computer to do it. So we're
Hmm.
talking on Discord over our
That's
mics, and he's like literally
adorable.
in the room next to me, but like I need to have my headphones on to play this game.
Yeah.
And it feels so fun, like, oh hey, what
Hmm.
are you doing tonight? You want to
Oh
play a game together? And
gosh.
I don't know, I
That's
just
so
think
cute.
that's
Yeah.
really fun to do. And
Yeah.
so my cousin's coming over, Jake, who's been on this
Yep.
podcast,
Hmm.
and I'm thinking about maybe we should play that game together,
Yeah.
and then Jake would be in the other room, so that we'd
Oh.
have all three of us on
Yep.
Discord, even though we're all in the same house playing the game together. And I think those are really fun ways of
Hmm.
community, bringing a little community together. Is
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That, I mean, that's really the ultimate goal of all of this is to feel a little bit less alone. That's our baseline for success.
Remember to take a moment to celebrate every little thing. Like
Hmm.
even if I'm thinking about when we did our writing group, is
Hmm.
sometimes we would come back and somebody would be like, I only wrote 100 words. And I'd be like, that's
We'd be like,
amazing. You
yay!
did 100
Yeah.
words. So I think too, like set your success
Hmm.
based on you,
Yeah.
in video games you can have like easy,
Hmm.
or like regular or hard mode. Nobody's asking. Nobody. Okay, as a 30-year-old woman, I'm playing on
Hmm.
easy mode. I don't have time to get good at this game.
Hell
So,
yeah.
put whatever your difficulty is. So if it's like I need to celebrate when I
Hmm.
write 25 words, then do that. Nobody's gonna ask you like, "Oh, really? You're celebrating that?" Just if you know
Right.
yourself,
Hmm.
define what is a big accomplishment for you.
Also, if anybody does say, oh, you're celebrating that, fuck them. Punch them right in the face because that's not somebody that you need on your writing journey.
No, you don't need them
No.
because obviously, if somebody's doing that, they are not a writer.
Hmm. Exactly. Do you want to know what makes me feel really successful?
What?
That we interviewed TJ Klune.
You know, you know, you know. Yes.
Every single interview that we've done so far, makes me feel more and more legitimate.
Hmm.
And every single author that we've talked to has been so wonderful. But TJ was the first one that I cold called. Everybody else I had some connection to or had met in person prior to or whatever else, and I felt like was doing me a favor. And TJ was the first one that was just out of the blue. I sent an email and he answered, and that made me feel really successful. I'm Abigail,
And I'm Maddie, and this has been
two writers.
Many Wrongs.